All right, so I want to introduce to you Dr. Alicia Baker and Dr. Kelly Carney, and they serve in our library media program. And I'm going to let them take just a few seconds to tell us what your PhD is in and what your background is, real fast.
Okay. My PhD is in educational technology, and I was a school librarian for 3 years and a special education teacher for 10 years.
My PhD is in curriculum studies, and I was a school librarian for 7 years and a fourth grade teacher for 6 years.
So I've asked them to review the article that you read and to give some comments on it. And I like to tell them, though sometimes I think they grind their teeth when I tell this joke about the librarian I used to have when I was principal, and I was asking her about something, and she said I could do that, and I said, well, how'd you learn to do this? And she said, well, this is what we do. What do you think librarians do? And I said, well, I thought you read books all day. She did not like that. But so the goal of this then is to look at what librarians really do or should be doing in schools and get some perspectives on how new principals can utilize librarians more. So one of the biggest things that is a takeaway from the article is that schools with robust library programs have significant higher scores all across the board. So talk about the general role of what you think a librarian should be doing in a school.
So the role of the librarian has really changed over the past 3 decades or so. Previously, it was all about having access, getting our students access to materials and resources. But recently, it has definitely changed to where we are more in a leadership role, working in collaboration with classroom teachers, providing assistance and instruction with technology. So there's a lot of different hats that a librarian can wear.
Yes, and when a school librarian is given the reins to be a leader in the school that he or she should be, then that's just when you will see the student achievement increase. And a principal, going to be in your position, should support your school librarian and allow him or her to work in this form. And the article speaks a lot about student achievement, and this is best accomplished when school librarians work in collaboration with the classroom teachers. So you need to really work closely with the librarian and the teachers and provide them with time to work together. So if you have curriculum committees, you should always put your school librarian on those committees as well, because they need that time to work together to build those relationships. Your school librarian has a lot of information literacy skills and standards to share, and your content teachers are your content specialists. When they work together, everyone increases their knowledge and students will succeed.
So I'm glad you said that about curriculum committee because, as you know, my students know I work with schools and we look at job descriptions and we rate them as they apply to curriculum development in districts. And librarians are, that's a common position that we indicate you need to have your librarians as a part of your curriculum team, and it's usually not reflected in their job descriptions. And so we quite often make that recommendation to them. A couple of areas that I wanted to hit on that the article talks about that I'd like you to shed a little bit more light on. We typically see, when I was principal and I did not utilize my resources as well as I should have, you typically, when you do see your librarian working in the library, he or she are working with students bringing in projects or something, and that's where we see them. But I'd like you to talk about a couple of areas that you mentioned a little bit. The first one is technology. How do you see the role of the librarian underutilized in technology, and what can principals do to enhance that?
I would say that librarians tend to stay up to date on the new technologies and how to use them. I would say also that you should use them in professional development role. So providing teachers with ideas on how to use technology, what the new technology consists of, how they can actually implement the technology into their lessons, not just in a passive way, but actually integrating them effectively.
And I would add to that, the school library standards, I iterate that all of us are learners, and teachers are learners, you are learners, we are learners, and so the school librarian in that leadership position can definitely teach others how to use the technologies, and it's part of our job.
And again, I'll say it again, when I work with schools and we look at technology, there is a criteria in technology that we have an expectation that a librarian is a part of the technology plan for the district, and quite often that is not there, and we make that recommendation to fix that. Dr. Baker, you mentioned professional development, not just in technology, but in other areas. I see the article had pointed that out a little bit. Are there any other ways you see librarians could be leaders in professional development as well?
Well, working with teachers in all areas, librarians have a broad overview of standards, and I think that they are able to provide a lot of kind of a bird's eye view of things, how things are connected. So when they serve on these committees, they're able to say, yeah, well, in math or something, they were doing something, bring in a different content area. So just kind of bringing the connection together.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the things that we've stressed in the class is that professional development should be research-based and data-driven, and that as principals, we can get away with not doing that, but if you want to be an effective principal, you really need to do that.
Yes.
And so that's where you can come in as well and help the individual principal with, hey, I think this might be a problem. We have underachievement in our ESL population. Can you help me find some literature that can support some professional development here?
Yeah.
So what do you think is, and this kind of asking you to think out loud a little bit, what's the biggest misstep that happens to public librarians with principals? What do they do that's probably a big no-no? I can guess.
Yeah. I would say utilizing their librarians in an effective manner. Using them in such a way that their time is restricted to certain areas where they are unable to go and collaborate when there is a need. Teachers will come to school librarians and say, hey, I have a project next week I want to work on. Can you help me? Can I bring my students in? And if their time is already tied up with something that is fixed, then they don't have the flexibility to provide that assistance. Yes.
I was thinking of principals using them as substitutes.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to be nice. Yes. I was trying to put it politically correct.
No,
yes.
we gotta be blunt.
Okay.
That is in my mind. As I've grown as an administrator and in working, that's a reality I think probably happens more often and unfairly probably in many districts. And it may or may not be that the principal or people see the librarian as not having students, and so they're free to cover a class. And so I think that would be something that I would encourage my students to respect them as on the same professional level you would another teacher.
Right. And going beyond just the substituting, I think it's the working as a specials teacher in like an elementary setting. The teachers have, they take their students to rotation, art, music, PE. But if a librarian is caught up in that fixed schedule all day, every day, they don't have the flexibility to do what they need. They don't even have the flexibility to effectively run the library. So getting students access to the resources they need, they're unable to do that because they are just in the teaching role. They're not in the
Yeah.
librarian.
Very
Part.
good. See, without
Yes.
elementary experience, I didn't even
Yes.
realize that.
And they may be teaching them useful skills, however, it's disjointed usually from the classroom's curriculum. So it's not that true collaborative assessment and teaching that we speak of when we say collaboration between the librarian and the teacher.
And that we've kind of come full circle because
Yes.
you've talked about the connection with the curriculum. And previously in the class, we've discussed the curriculum and the importance of having a solid curriculum framework in place. And without that, everything else that comes afterwards is fragmented. And so that has to be in place. And so if you have this non-collaborative atmosphere where you're not supporting or enhancing what the curriculum is happening in the classroom, then it looks good on the surface, but in reality it's probably not making an impact that it could.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, very good. Any other thoughts you would like to share with these future principals?
I would just like to say that your school librarian can be your biggest advocate as well as your school's advocate.
Mhm.
So if you give that librarian the freedom that they deserve and that they are trained for in order to be the true leader in the school that they are prepared to do, then they're going to go to bat for you with all of the stakeholders and vice versa. It could be a very wonderful relationship and all the students will succeed.
Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
I appreciate your time.